I'm excited to share this story, so let's get
All
moving.
right, let's get started. So, of course, I got to share my screen, right? Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we're in Toolpath. Let's drop that wheel in there. I've introduced myself. So if you guys haven't met me, I'm Ben, the content manager, excuse me, here at Toolpath. I'm also getting over some sort of sickness or the seasons are changing or whatever. But I get to share all the cool things that our team is working on and building, and of course, run some webinars. So let's dive in. I definitely want to make sure if you're new to Toolpath that you guys have a good understanding of what it does, kind of the value of it. And then we've also got a lot of customers on the call. So we're going to kind of dive in a little bit later, get into the nitty gritty, the geeky details, as Tim might say, and during Q&A. So, all right. So everybody can see my screen. Let's just hop into this part. So this is the overview page. If you haven't seen Toolpath before, this is what we get to see when we upload our part. We can upload either a step file or a solid model. And Toolpath kind of helps us with these three questions that I think as machinists and programmers, we all kind of think about. We think about, can I machine this part with my tools? How am I going to make this part? And then how much is it going to cost? If we can't answer those questions, we're usually not very confident if we can, take on the job. So Toolpath is doing that automatically. On the overview page, we've got some red here, and Toolpath's already saying, hey, if you look over here, we can only machine about 55% of this part right now with your given tool library. So I've uploaded my Brother Speedio tool library into Toolpath, and it has a limited amount of tools. So I can only machine about 55% of this. But what Toolpath has also done is it's given me some recommendations. So if I click on this, in this case, it's a Harvey 5/32 bowl nose. It resolves 22 machinability issues, which we can see are highlighted on that part. And if I add that to my cart, use this tool, and then of course we would regenerate, then that part would go from 55% all the way to 100. So Toolpath is getting us kind of the rest of the way there and identifying what tools are required. So we figured out, can we make this part with our tools? The next question to ask ourselves is, how am I going to make this part? So here I am in the setups tab. And if I click on these icons, these rotate my parts into each setup. So let's take a look at setup 2. I can see all of the features associated with each setup. And if we click into this face, it gives me kind of an overview of the features. Now, in this case, this is just a face, so we don't have a feature depth or anything. But I can see what roughing tool Toolpath decided to use, as well as my finishing tool. And, we're picky machinists, so maybe I don't want to finish with a 3/8 end mill. Maybe I actually want to use my 2-inch shell mill, because Tim would yell at me if I use an end mill to finish with, right? So I can actually tell Toolpath that I want to manually override that. In this case, I'm not going to do that because we have to click regenerate, but there's always that ability to do that. And of course, we were talking about banana for scale. This is something that we threw in during April Fools, and just for one day. And then the next day we took it out of the product. Everybody was like, where'd the banana go? So that's sticking around. We even made a shortcut key, the BS. If you type in BS, you can toggle on and off that banana. It's way more useful than you would think, and it also gets a couple laughs. So I figured I have to show that. Okay, so if we jump over the tools tab, now we have a tool list of everything that is all the tools that are required to machine this part. And what I like to show here is we have over 1,400 tools available to us, but Toolpath is only using 5 tools, and it's using our preferred tools. So that means that top priority, that preferred tool, means that it's already set up in my machine, which is really what I want to know, so I can make this part, today. If we jump over to the strategy tab, This is really similar to like what you would see when you're programming in CAM. We always take the tool and try to condense all of the features down for one tool. So Toolpath has already done that. We've got this 3/8 inch end mill. I'm going to expand roughing and see that we have 9 features that take about 6 minutes, a little over 6 minutes to machine. And Toolpath is hitting all of these features with this roughing operation. Now, before I even send it to Fusion, it's pretty slick. I can actually change my spindle speed. Maybe I'm not happy with that surface speed for whatever reason. All these parameters, which look very similar to Fusion, you can change, and it will actually update that tool globally. So you don't have to worry about going back into your tool library and editing that parameter. So that's a really nice feature. Okay, so the final tab is our estimate. So if we have to, get an accurate estimate for an RFQ or to our customer, this is where we're going to do it. The estimate page it's really just a natural byproduct of everything I've shown you in Toolpath so far, right? We know what tools we're using. We know the feeds and speeds and stepovers. We know how many setups. So now we can apply the machining time. We can associate a cost with that. And that cost is actually built from your shop, right? So on the left-hand side, we can see we have machining rate. That's going to be different for every shop. Every shop's a snowflake. The production quantity that's required, as well as setups, right? We can define how much it's going to cost for each setup or an hourly rate, as well as a fixed and auto for the stock. You have base costs. I don't want to take this job for anything less than 150. And you can also add additional costs like anodizing and maybe sandblasting fees or something like that. So here on the, I need to move my Zoom stuff. Here on the right-hand side, we can get a grand total. And this is based off of the machining time, right? So I can see in the center that setup 1, if I want to look at, let's just look at chamfers. Okay, chamfers are 3 minutes and 11 seconds, and that's going to cost me $5.33. But why are they 3 minutes? Well, these are all 6 seconds. Mostly chamfers are pretty quick, but we can actually see this chamfer 11. It's this 3D surface, right? So it's picking that up. It's using our ball end mill. That's going to take an extra bit of time to machine. So you get a nice breakdown for the estimate there. So we've been able to answer what tools are required for the job, how am I going to make it, right, with the setups. I got to show you one more thing in setups. This is a preview feature, but it's super cool. We're picky machinists, and say we don't like the setup that Toolpath picked, I can literally just drag and drop. So now this setup is actually my first setup, and I can just regenerate that. It's coming really soon. I'm excited about it. People have been asking for a while. So, okay, so this is Toolpath, but I got to show you my favorite button. It's export to Fusion. So we're going to click on this. It's going to copy a special link to our clipboard. And I just realized you guys can't see Fusion, so now I got to stop share. Thanks for working with me on this, guys. All right, let's see. I'm gonna have to share my whole screen for Fusion because you guys won't be able to see stuff otherwise. So here I am in Fusion. We have a Fusion add-in that lets us either send our part to Toolpath or bring it down into Fusion from Toolpath, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Hey, Ben, I'm not seeing it yet.
Sorry about that. Should have clicked share.
Yep.
Again, here's our add-in that lets us either shoot the part to Toolpath or bring it down, and we're going to bring it down in this case. So I'm going to click part.
Just for people, if you need to zoom in, here's a crazy tip for Zoom. Ironic given the name of the product, but if you click in the window that Ben's sharing, you can actually zoom in.
There you go. I'm sorry, guys. I'll get rid of the widescreen for the next webinar. Okay, so what Toolpath has done while Scott was talking there was in a few seconds, actually, it brought everything that I just showed you guys in Toolpath into Fusion. And here's our setups that have been auto-populated for those toolpaths, or yeah, for the setups. So we can see all of our operations. Now, in this case, we got a 55% machine ability score, so there's going to be some issues, but we were still able to send that to Fusion. And now since it's in Fusion, I have full editing capability of it as well. So that's kind of a quick rundown. Hopefully, you guys have a better understanding of kind of how Toolpath works. There's a really fun story with this part that's why Tim's on the call, and so he's probably really eager to tell you guys all about it. So actually, Tim, I'm going to shift it over to you,
Yeah, thanks, man.
and you can give us the story on this part.
Yeah, so I'll drop a little quick slideshow on you because I like picture. I'm a picture kind of guy. So let me get that started. Ben, just give me a yes or no. The slides are showing, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
So this is a good longtime friend of mine from my bike shop days. He's running a race shop now. They basically prep race cars to, do a ride and drive kind of program stuff up here in Northern California. Throttle Therapy is the name. He's got some rad stuff they're doing up there. That's not really the point of the story. He sent me a text. Hey, homie, I've got an SOS. I'm hoping you can help me with. And the rest of the story is that he has a really nice laser alignment system. That when he bought it, he was told this, you buy this kit and it'll fit every Porsche that ever existed for the rest of time, beginning of time, all that stuff. And uh, I'm getting distracted. I need to stop looking at the comments. Um, they lied, or whatever the case was. So he needed an adapter to go from these fancy, knockoff type lug nut to this. So I was like, if I got the material and the tools, yeah, I can knock that out today. I was planning on going out and machining something in my shop to kind of bang on Toolpath anyways. So the funnest part of the story, I'm going to get straight to the punchline. From the first text to being ready to go out to the machine, and that included a follow-up call, several text messages, him, taking some measurements. That whole process was like 52 minutes. And I remember sitting back thinking, holy crap. I've been machining parts for 25 years. And this is a doodle that he sent me. This is a screenshot I sent him like, hey, we're good on these green measurements. I need you to make sure to verify these red measurements and send me a picture of what the heck this thing's doing. So that was that picture. Basically, we needed an adapter for that. If anybody doesn't know, especially if you're working back and forth with designing parts for customers, um, I just had a brain fade. Scott Moyes, help me out. In Fusion, you can save out to as a U something Z USZD or something. What is this, Scott? Help me.
Something, yeah, U3Z or something like that. It's just, yeah, I
Yeah.
forget. Hang on,
Anyways,
I'll find.
I'll show it when I get to Fusion. You failed me, Scott. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
uh, USZD or some crap. I'll pull it up in Fusion in a second. But it's pretty cool. You can send someone a file, text them. They got to be on an iPhone. USDZ. Thank you, Daniel, for the win. Um, but you can send them the 3D file. They can open it on their phone and like place it on here on their laptop, right? So that was just a fun little part of the story. I ran this thing through Toolpath. I mean, I designed the thing, so and I know what tools and material I had, so I got 100%. Um, this was the beginning of some of the tool paths. I held it in my chick one lock vise with Versa grip jaws. Apparently, I'm getting nervous because John Saunders is on the call. Just kidding. So I held it with some Versa grip, little Mighty Bite grippers. and then flipped it over for the soft jaw on the other side. I probably had more time into finding this little logo for Andy's Andy's business and playing with the logo in the pocket than I did the rest of the part. But the really interesting part of the story for me, so this is what they do. This is how they adapt the laser alignment fixtures, and that's the car. So let me get over to Fusion and start talking about the rest of the story. But uh, now the interesting part of the story for me is 52 minutes from a text message to being ready to go out to the machine. I still can't load tools in my holder in my machine because I anybody that doesn't know, I had a real serious accident back in April. I busted my neck and back up pretty bad and dislocated my head. So lucky to be alive, but I wasn't able to run. I'm still not able to run my machine. So Carol, my fiance, anybody that didn't know that, that's breaking news. Um, she's been running my machine, and so I was like, Carol, let's go make some parts. And she said, man, it's almost 100 degrees in the shop. So the only thing that kept this thing from being done start to finish in probably 2 hours was that we wanted to wait till the next morning to machine the part. And the interesting dynamic for me was that I've made really good living for quite a few years. Basically micromanaging toolpaths, making toolpaths cooler than anybody else's. And then now that I'm sitting around waiting for it to cool down, I started micromanaging these stupid toolpaths. And this is a conversation that John Saunders and I briefly had, or a comment that he made was like, it's interesting that, the first instinct is like, well, I want it to program just like me. But it doesn't always do that. We make some logical decisions. A lot, to be honest, a lot of the decisions are decisions I've kind of made as a starting point for how Toolpath is going to machine parts. And what I found is I started like rebuilding surfaces and doing really dorky 3D Toolpath stuff. And then about an hour into that, I was like, what the heck am I doing? I'm just going to go do something else and just machine this thing in the morning. So here's a quick overview of the part. We've already seen the part, but the plan was on the first operation, we'll hold it like this in those Versa grips, and then hold on to this in the second operation with some soft jaws. If there's time at the end and anybody wants to see my soft jaw workflow, we can dig into that if we want. Maybe I can do a little geek tips video about it too. But I thought it'd be interesting to go from here. I'm not going to give you the whole kind of walkthrough of Toolpath, but from here, I have very specific stock that I had to fit this in. So I wanted to show that as well. So basically, I had this round stock from another job that I had remaining. So I went in and modeled the stock where I wanted it to be, and then I went over to the manufacturing side and I just made a setup because on this example, I wanted to micromanage a very specific setup. So from here, for the first and second operation. So from here, I sent over to Toolpath, and then we can switch over to my browser. And that's not what I wanted to show you. And so we don't need to watch this, process, right? That's staging. I should be fired. So this is what I got here. So because I made this one pocket shallower than the one I sent Ben, and I added some logos there, I'm getting a 99% machinability score. I don't even want to mess with this. It could recommend me a tool for those tiny little features, but I know exactly how I want to machine those. I know what tool I want to machine them with. So kind of my workflow is to go to tools. I kind of skim through the tools, make sure there's no surprises, not something weird that I totally disagree with, and I don't see anything there. You could definitely go through the strategy tab, but Ben already showed you that. And there's a little preview that I probably shouldn't have turned on for everybody. Pretty soon you're going to be able to see toolpaths from, from the strategy tab. And then the estimate, it's my buddy. I didn't actually charge him for these. I think he gave me some beer money. But this is where I would go change to four. Maybe the setups were a little easier than I expected, so I would do, maybe I can edit these, something like that. But the cool thing is this is about what I would have charged for this job. The timing was really close to what we ended up machining these. Material, I didn't even look into the material. So from here, I would export over. Actually, I think I do need to grab that export key. Then I would come over here. And the cool thing here is I have a decision. I can bring this back into the current document or dump it out to a new document because I like to play with this separately. I'm going to do a new document. If I was running a job shop or whatever, I would just bring it into that other existing document. And apparently I grabbed the softjaw key. So let's go back, do the export key here, come back over here and do this. Yeah, I must not have clicked on that. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through just exactly what I would do to just kind of give a walk through the toolpaths. I'm not hiding any little scabs that we have. I'll show you how I would navigate those. And while this is popping in, Scott or Ben, is there anything we want to answer live or anything you want me to address before I move on?
I think we're okay. I've answered the questions I've seen come through so far.
Okay, great.
Um, yeah.
Great. So I have this weird fusion bug that I'll share. Um, well, and of course, now that I do it live, it's not there. For several weeks, I couldn't click on these toolpaths without going over to design and then back to manufacture. So if you have a weird bug like that, try that. So there's a couple things I would do here. So the first thing I would usually do is just kind of click down through here. I don't see anything crazy that I don't like. That all looks good to me. So that is how I would, it's a very, very, very close, if not exactly how I'd program the first operation. Next thing I'm going to do is go to simulate the whole setup. And then what I do is I look for little red tags down here in the timeline. I very rarely actually watch the simulation, but I do see a little red tag there in the timeline, so I'll click on it and then zoom in here and see what's happening. And I see exactly what's happening here. So if you do a simulation, turn on stock, I would usually go to tail for the toolpath type. I always turn on stop on collision, but then when you do this, I almost always just go full throttle to get to the stop. And what's happening here is we have a bad bottom height on the adaptive roughing. I've already recorded that I've already logged a ticket and that should be fixed here real soon. So that's basically what happened is that we're going in to do a uh, computer seems to be running slow. So I just need to come into here and my bottom height is just model bottom. I need to change this to model bottom minus tool underscore corner radius, and I'll do another 10 thousandths of an inch. So hit OK, that'll regenerate. But what that'll do is it'll give a little extra clearance to the 2D contour because the 2D contour is set to the model bottom minus 125 thou. And what that is if we look at the tool, we have 120 thou bullnose tool, so it's just going 5 thousandths past that. So we'll have a 5 thousandths clearance there. So from there, that side of the part is ready to run. Now, one little tip is all of our 3D toolpaths for now are being output as scallop toolpaths. And those decision, honestly, I pushed on pretty hard for now because scallop is a really good toolpath to do pretty much any geometry from, steep surfaces, shallow surfaces, segment geometry. And and so as a starting point, we'll do that while we make sure that we're getting good containments, good height containments, good tool selections. And then it's very easy if you were like, I would use ramp on that surface, to just right click on that, create a derived operation, and go to something like ramp or any applicable toolpath. One thing I see is anytime you're machining like a segment of geometry, the smaller the segment is, the smaller your toolpath should be. So if I'm doing a small segment geometry like that, I would often come over and make my tolerance, really small because it'll smooth out the if you look, there's some waviness there. It'll smooth that out. Maybe I want to micromanage and change this to some other toolpath, but if my job is to just get good parts out, then I would just do that and move on. Now, what I did do when I went to machine this is I actually wanted like a more aggressive, and it's hard to see in the webcam, but I wanted a more aggressive toolpath because I wanted to look more, I don't know, fun. So I went and made the step over quite a bit bigger. All right, so moving on to the second operation. I'll pause for a second. I see a lot of good commentary that I want to read, but is there anything we should address before I move on, Scott or Ben?
We've got some hand raises. I'm not sure how to address them right now. If we want to, do you guys want to speak or did you just have a question? I'll wait to hear back from them in the chat.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, we should probably start Q&A, see if we want to
Yeah.
dig in a little bit more.
Yeah.
I can
Let me
share
wrap
some of
this
the
up.
new features after you're done with that, Tim. And
Yeah, perfect. Let me wrap this up real quick. So a couple things here is I don't need to go through all the toolpaths. We did have another bug that I found here. We're trying to do this transition as a flat. And it actually machines the full geometry because it uses the scallop goes all the way up and this wall comes all the way down. So it is fully machined. But that's basically my workflow is I just go down, see if I see any problems. I would actually delete it, but I'm in the habit of suppressing stuff because I report, bugs and problems. So anyways, that's the part. For anybody that hasn't used Engrave, that's what I use for here. I went to the setup, went to create from template, and then I did this Engrave. Actually, no, I didn't. I lied. That's usually what I do. But this, I use this Engrave operation. And what I did there is I just picked these and let it engrave. The cool thing with that is you can get these little sharp corners and stuff like that. So, um, with that, I mean, it was a pretty straightforward, simple part. The last thing, the only other, so I had to add two toolpaths, one for the fancy engraving, and nothing comes off my machine without being fully deburred in the machine. So I did use an extension toolpath, which is deburr. I'll just show you real quick how nice and simple that is. I went into a ball mill, picked this ball mill, and then all you have to do is on the geometry tab. I actually selected the chamfers. I just went around and picked them all. And then what that does, it just hits a ball mill and gives a little 10th edge break on them or whatever you have your default set at. So that's the story of walking through the part. Now, the big like personal moment I had was like I and many of us in the industry as we're looking to be more efficient and more productive, I need to start thinking through, like, I've been rewarded for hyper micromanaging toolpaths. And now, like, this made a very good part. So it was 2 hours total to make 4 parts from design, from the first text to the finish. And I spent an hour waiting for it to cool down, micromanaging toolpaths. I ended up deleting all those and just running the part. So, um, let's kick it back to you, Ben. I'll stop sharing, or I can share if anybody wants me to do anything specific, unless you want to share the screen, Ben.
Yeah, I'll take the share. I think I can share better this time too.
Sounds good.
Hopefully, hopefully this looks a little bit better for you guys. Yeah, so I'd like to answer any more questions that people have. So I can't see the comments anymore.
Yeah, I'll watch them.
Yeah, but I also wanted to show some of the kind of the new features that are maybe a little bit more power user setting stuff. So looks like Joshua raised his hand. I'll let you guys deal with that. But so if I jump into cut
Yeah, let's
configs,
just, Joshua, if you raise your hand, you disappeared off my screen. Joshua, if you raise your hand, I'll allow you to talk.
oh, there we go. Yeah, go for it. What's up,
Yeah,
Joshua?
there you go. Asked to unmute. So you got to unmute yourself. I just asked you to unmute. There we
Hey,
go. You should
sorry,
be
that was
unmuted.
I think I hit that by accident.
Oh, no problem. Well, thanks for. You have any questions while we have you?
Got him on the spot.
No.
Okay. All right, Joshua. Thanks.
Cool. No worries. Uh, okay. So back in Toolpath, I just want to show a couple things. I did show the rearranging setups. I think that's super great. Jumping into cut config. So if I open up this aluminum demo, right, I talked about tool libraries, but really it's a cut config, and we've kind of created that new term. But a cut config is like a smart tool library, or you can have multiple tool libraries that are kind of defined for Toolpath. So what we've done in cut configs, if you guys are familiar with them, is we've created now a basic mapping versus advanced mapping, which advanced mapping was actually what you guys were familiar with. So let me show you kind of the new mapping here. So if we're looking at this 8 tool library here, these aluminum tools, I can let's click on our 1/8" end mill here. And right, I can see everything about my end mill. Looks like my flute goes all the way up to the holder. But if I click into presets, you guys will see something kind of new here. And we're trying to make this a lot simpler for people to kind of understand. So these are what we would call roles and what we're allowing that tool to be allowed for, right? So if this is our 1/8" end mill finish, Toolpath already knows that it has finish in the name. It's not going to use it for roughing. But say we actually want to use it for roughing. We can actually just turn on adaptive rough and maybe even face rough. And now this tool is allowed to be used for those processes. So anytime Toolpath is needing an 1/8" end mill for adaptive clearing or face roughing, it's going to look at this tool now as well as an option. And then let's say I'm going to save that for now. Let's say you've got a favorite rougher, which I think we all kind of have favorite tools, or maybe I'm just weird. I don't know. But I have this 3/8 tool here. And what you'll see is we can prioritize using that little star. So I love to use this 3/8 tool for roughing. So I've actually starred every single roughing roll, maybe even slotting here. And so now when Toolpath needs to machine a feature, it's always going to try to use that 3/8 end mill that has those priority stars on it before it looks at anything else. So this is kind of how you can get Toolpath to work the way that you want it to, and program and think the way that you want it to. And then if you want to change any of those values, you just click on the edit cutting parameters, and then we're right where we know and love, right? We can change our spindle speed, surface speed, cutting feed rate, and all that. So that's a new improvement to Toolpath that I think will help people understand when they're setting up their libraries, right? I say libraries because in a cut config you can have multiple libraries. So here's my aluminum tools, and I've set it as the highest priority level. So if I'm programming a part, I say Toolpath, look at this library first before you look at anything else. So if I have this additional library selected, I'll set it as my standard. And then we also have a backup tier. So you have 3 different levels, and Toolpath is going to kind of like look at your first library. Then it's also going to look at your top priority cutting rules, right? So it's going to look at these stars. And then it's gonna, once it's exhausted those options, it will only move on to the next library and so on. And then additionally, we have tool recommendations. That's the same as it's always been. But we still have that layer where we can add either vendor tool libraries or even our own libraries. So Toolpath, we have a couple of drill, metric and inch libraries, as well as taps. So you can just turn these on, and when you run your part, then Toolpath is going to look at your tool library, and then it's also going to say, okay, I can machine this much with these tools, but here's actually some recommended tools that I'm allowed to look at. And if it's a vendor tool library that we supply, you can actually click on the link and go buy it. So in that case of Tim's part, I'm going to click on this Harvey tool, and then I can go to the Harvey tool website and then go grab that tool and order it. And that's that's the coolest thing. You don't have to dig through catalogs, over and over again. So that's one really big improvement that we've made. Tim and Scott, is there anything specifically that people want me to go over? I'm not looking at the chat right now.
Yeah, I've been answering some questions. I'm also trying to catch up on them. Anybody
Okay.
want to raise their hand and unmute yourself? Feel free to.
Maybe maybe just show how to add additional line items on the estimate.
I was
But
Okay, yeah.
I was getting to type that in, so I was
So
going
if
to
we
type that in. So good call, Scott.
Yeah, so if we jump to the estimate page, right, on this left-hand side, we have a lot of different things that we can change. Additional items, these are kind of your one-time costs. So say you have the cost of a tool that you want to kind of keep track of. You could call this I don't know, our roughing tool or something like that. And then add the cost associated for that. I don't know, $65 or something. And that goes into other, and that's a one-time cost that doesn't get multiplied over the production quantity or anything like that. So I saw there was a comment asking about tooling costs, and I think that's one way that you could navigate, adding the tooling costs into the additional items.
There's a little more talk of, do we want to essentially add like a per item cost? Maybe I just staying with tooling. Maybe I know that for every tool I burn up because we're cutting Inconel or some gnarly stuff. Maybe I know that I just burn up $80 in tooling, for every part.
Yeah,
We're looking at adding like a per part, cost.
yeah.
Ben Sam said, "Can you show a quick workflow on how you would utilize the recommendation tools?" Uh,
Sure. Yeah. Let's go ahead and we'll pull in this. This is an old webinar part. And let's see. I think what I'm gonna do is just real quick, I'm gonna go into cut config, and we're gonna create a new cut config just for Sam. Uh, we're gonna, instead of uploading our own tool library, which we can upload a Fusion tool library, I can actually just create a new library and then add tools to it. So I'm just gonna put one tool in here and then add some automatic presets to it. So here's our flat end mill, right? And now recommendations. So these are all the tool libraries that we can recommend to you. So we'll do some Kennametal, Harvey, and Haas. We'll click save. And that's all I'm gonna do. There's a bunch of other things that I could do, but I'm gonna jump into this part now. And we're gonna look at it with our SAM cut config, right? Our tool library that we just kind of configured, our cut config. So it's gonna look at this part now, and I only gave it one end mill of my tools, right? So I have a feeling it's going to recommend a bunch of other tools. And I think that's probably going to help us understand how this works. Let's see, what else do we have? How's Toolpath suited for low mix, high volume work?
Yeah, let me chime in on that. I think, yeah, I believe Scott Moyes misunderstood.
Yeah.
I had mental dyslexia. So Matt asked, how is Toolpath suited for low mix, higher volume work? Programming is for new products and modifications to existing products. Just to be super honest, our real sweet spot, fastball down the middle, is kind of the opposite of that. Is more high mix, low volume. I have some workflows for kind of spreading, using patterns and stuff of spreading it across. I think high volume is a different definition for different people. I think some shops, see 100 parts and that feels like a high volume where to me high volume is where you're just running weeks and weeks at a time.
Yeah. John makes a really good point though. We do talk to some production shops and they are using Toolpath for fixtures and the onesie twosie R&D stuff, where it kind of gets you that much faster to your production part because you're like, I don't want to program a fixture for this. So then you're holding it kind of silly and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, good call out on that, John.
Yeah, thanks for stealing my end of my
Oh,
end of my answer,
I'm
John.
sorry, Tim. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's perfect.
Sam, going
Work
back to Sam's
holding,
part.
and then I do think having a starting point, I think very often you'll kind of make that first part while you start programming the rest of the job. There's a lot of ways. Basically, if there's any low volume stuff that you're annoyed that you have to program, I think Toolpath is a great fit for that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so let's look at Sam's part here, right? So I have one tool. This is actually pretty interesting. I can machine about 50% with just one tool that I made, which is kind of cool. But what's really powerful here is now we have two tool recommendations. And if I click on again this it's trying to use a ball mill here to do our chamfers. That's probably because there's no chamfers in that library. As well as a smaller 141 thou 3 flute end mill to get in those pockets. If I were to select those, and let's actually do this because I think he wanted to see this, and we click regenerate, I go from one tool to now three tools, but now I should be able to machine, I'm assuming probably the whole part. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Sam? Hopefully.
I'll chime in if I see it.
Yeah.
I think that answers,
Yeah.
believe that answers what we're looking for.
There you go. So just it's actually pretty incredible. With just three tools, we can machine this whole part. Two of them were recommended to us by Toolpath. Um, so I guess you can use tool recommendations in a couple of ways, right? You can have a nice library that you like to use that's part of your shop. Maybe you have 100 tools, you've got 20 always set up in the machine, 80 of them at your disposal, and then you just kind of use the tool recommendations as a backup. But in this case, I just had one tool and I was like, Toolpath, you figure out how to machine this part. So there's kind of some unique ways that you can use it.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick before we get to the next couple questions. I have a buddy that's been a long time Mastercam programmer, and he does some pretty gnarly parts. He right now, and he does like very high volume. Right now, he's using Toolpath as like I just wanted to go find weird DFM problems that they'll screw me later, and I use it to basically sort out what tools I need. so then he can kind of get a head start without, for basically free.
Yeah.
Um, the last question I saw was, uh, so if you didn't want to use a ball mill, how would you switch to a chamfer mill?
We didn't have a chamfer in that any libraries, even in the recommended libraries. So let's just see what happens. I go to save this. I might actually have to.
I think that the next question was similar.
There we go.
The bottom of your screen's kind of. Oh, hang on. No, this is my fault because I've had it zoomed in.
Zoomed in the whole time. Yeah, so let's see what actually happens when we rerun this part. Another quick tip here, if you change something about your cut config and you need to like regenerate your part, these three little dots, you can click regenerate. And before I do that, we actually added another thing that's a guided tour. So if you have a question about Toolpath, this guided tour should help you with that. And we additionally have, and it's not showing up, which is kind of strange, but we have a live chat that's not AI, right? We're an AI company, but we're trying to be as human as possible. So it's actually me, Scott, Tim, Paul, everybody, on the call. You can talk with us anytime, unless we're asleep. So if I click,
It's not showing up because you're on staging. That's all.
oh, okay, thank you. Yeah.
But
So
it just appears in the
let's see what
bottom right hand
happens.
corner, and you can move it around on screen as well. You can grab the little handle and shift it around if you need to get it out of the way of stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim
While
Long.
while you regenerating that, Tim has a question. Another Tim. Are the additional line items persistent if the part is regenerated? So on the estimate tab, when you add those additional line items, if you regen, I'm pretty sure if you regen, they will. I wasn't entirely certain if you change the cut config, whether they remain persistent or not. I'm guessing if you've got a different estimate preset applied to your cut config, then it may change those line items.
Yeah.
Line items.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't explain is an estimate preset is basically saving all of this. I'll just go to manage presets. So we can build an estimate preset based on our machine and also our material. So if I click estimate preset, we've got tool change time, base cost, machining rate, as well as cost per setup, and then the price of our material. So in this case, we've got 360 brass on our brother Speedio. It's going to cost this much to run because we know the price of the material and what machine is going on. Where did
I
I
think
put?
we'll have to check your question specifically, Tim,
Yeah.
for switching between cut configs to see whether it persists. And I'll email you. I think we'll have your email so we can let you know.
So this is kind of interesting. That was a really good question by Eric asking about the chamfer tool. It looks like even though we have a chamfer tool in our library, it's still selecting our ball nose. And I'll have to dig into why, but if I had to guess, it has something to do with not wanting to do the extra tool change. And then possibly a priority setting too. But that's a good one to note. Do you happen to know why, Scott, it might be doing that?
Can you remove the tool recommendation? It maybe the Harvey tool recommendation is overriding it. No, just can you go back onto the main tab and just deselect the recommendation down the
Uh,
bottom there?
yeah, I don't know. Good question though. Anything else? We've got about 4 minutes. I'm happy to stay on the call. I love talking about Toolpath and digging into the details. before you guys do go while this generates, if you click over here, again, we have the live chat, but we also have the help center. This is kind of a shameless plug for Learn Toolpath in 20 minutes. We feel like if you watch these multiple videos that kind of add up to about 20 minutes, I'll click on one. We've got a series of them that you can kind of walk through each section of Toolpath. We feel like it's a really good head start in understanding how to use it, and you can walk through, upload your tool libraries and everything. And then additionally, we do have a YouTube channel. We've got Instagram. This is actually a fun plug for Tim's Geek Tips. So Tim's been making a lot more videos lately, and he loves to do geek tips on Fusion. So you got like a little bit of a taste just a couple minutes ago when we were diving into the details in Fusion. Then we have some customer success stories. I mean, it's definitely dig around in there. Of course, we have tutorial videos too. So yeah, before you guys go, make sure you check that out. And if you do have an account and it's expired, please reach out to us at support@toolpath.com, or even my personal email. I believe it's floating around in the chat. Benjamin.angle@toolpath.com. We're happy to, restart your guys' trial. We know that 14 days is probably not enough time to fully immerse yourself in the product. And we want to make sure that you guys have the best chance of success. So we'll work with you and figure out what's right there. So yeah, it looks like it didn't select my chamfer mill. I'll have to look into that.
I'm not saying the issue is here, Ben, but I recently had a chamfer that I've been doing for workshops when I was at Autodesk for, I don't know, 8 years now. And the chamfer ended up being like a 47-degree chamfer or something.
Oh,
Uh, and I reported it as a bug, and then so this is several weeks ago, but Justin came back and was like, "Hey,
yeah,
go check your part again." I'm not saying that's what happened here, but
yeah,
we should do a better job of reporting why we made that decision.
yeah.
Anybody looking at the Geek Tip stuff on YouTube, I'm happy to take requests for specific topics. I also say those tooltips that pop up, if something in Toolpath makes you feel like, man, I really wish there was a tooltip here that explained this better. What would be a good email, Ben or Scott, to send like, hey, could you do a
Support
tool?
at
Huh?
support at
Yeah.
toolpath.com.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's anything making you feel like, I had to bang around and just to understand this, there should be a good little tooltip that explains it. So just send us an email. Be a part of making it better.
We have a feedback form as well. I can send that out in a follow-up email
Yeah.
with everyone.
Well,
On.
with that,
That's it.
happy to stay long as well as Ben. I don't see any unanswered questions. If anybody wants to chime in, now would be the time to do it.
Oh, we have a Q&A from
There's
2 minutes ago.
stuck in.
Q&A. So Tim Long,
Long.
he basically came back and said, yeah, in the past, we're regenerating lost that added charge. Yeah, it's something we should be looking at. I'd
I bet
also
that's what
say,
it is.
yeah,
When you change your gut config on a part there, it drops them.
I love people just going straight from Toolpath to quoting parts. I've always thought of Toolpath as like an estimator, not like a quoting system. So for me, I think I would still probably be using like, anodizing, these extra things as part of a quote where for me, Toolpath is just a great tool to help estimate the cost of a part.
I meant to ask you earlier on in the call. I know that there was talk at one point of supporting an export of the estimate out as a CSV file. Is
Mhm.
that still in the pipeline, Tim?
Yeah, it was talked about last week. Everybody agreed on it. I don't remember it finding like a date or target, but well, it was put on our before IMTS list, which is a very long ways out, but we did identify it as what should be a fairly easy kind of win. So when we do
Yeah.
these sprints to develop software, right, we look for like hard things and then also easy wins to kind of mix in with. So that was one of the easy wins that we looked at. So that would be, I think, solve a lot of people's, exported out to CSV, right?
Hey Tim, Eric asked about fourth axis or five axis is coming.
Mm-hmm.
You probably
Yeah.
have better details on timeline now from that meeting.
Yeah. So when I hear 4 or 5 axis, I hear simultaneous. What we are currently working on is 3+2. I would say, don't hold my feet to the fire. I wouldn't be surprised if we start showing stuff off, this quarter or early next quarter. Um, we have some pretty aggressive, plans for that. Justin, our CTO, has done a ton of work on kind of getting, the foundation of it figured out. And then now we're going to be transitioning it to do more dev work to get it in front of people. So keep an eye out for it for sure. Through simultaneous is it's not really on the radar. I'm sure we'll dip our toe into like Swarf and some of that stuff, but Lathe is one that I was the unpopular person at the product meeting last week when I brought up turning, but I think it's important to complete someone's shop. So I put that on a R&D list for Justin, our CTO, to better understand. So when he gets back, he and I are going to do some deep dive into turning, so I can kind of show him the why I think it potentially could be something we should look at. We acknowledge that we definitely need to do turning. Just when is the question.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great webinar, guys. I really appreciate all the chats and the engagement. It's been really fun. Tim, thanks for sharing that part with us.
Yeah.
And again, if you guys need anything, any help. Oh wait.
I'll just say, Eric, I share your sentiment on easier than milling. Milling's, our biggest target right now, but I think we have some kind of good wins with turning. I don't want to insult any turning people, but I've turned lots and lots of parts, and first thing we need to understand is like tool selection and tool matching, and that's what Justin and I will be digging into.
Uh,
Yeah, it's just different, so it requires different
Yeah,
technology to
yeah,
support.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mill turn would be the easy next, yeah, we can all lament about, well, what the future should and could and will be, but that's all very, very much on our radar. So I'm happy that you guys are all chiming in with that stuff.
Actually, before we go, Harrison, I did want to answer that. You said something that has modular material and jaws in the model. That's really our biggest holdup and a requirement for 3+2 machining is understanding the work holding and the material itself. So yes, we will have something. I don't know if it will be a Fusion template. It might be similar to the workflow that we currently have.
Yeah, we have some work holding
Yes.
workflows
So
now.
if you haven't tried it, Harrison, import backend's current document is pretty awesome. You can have a whole bunch of fixture stuff set up, and it'll if you've pushed it out from Toolpath from that environment, then you can pull it back into that environment. So the template framework is using fundamentally the container method. Um, so there's a few different options, and yeah, it's a kind of foundational work for being able to support 3+2 properly within the product in the future.
What is the container method, Scott? For anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah, so it's basically using components inside Fusion as containers for geometry rather than specifically a part or an assembly. So you would pre-select that component at various points in your CAM, either in your setups or in toolpaths, and then then those toolpaths and setups will just react to whatever you dump inside those components in the future. So there's some good content on YouTube. There's Rob Lockwood and Phil Mestenhauser have got some great classes on the Autodesk University website that you can look up. And we've done some content around it as well on our YouTube channel. So, and there'll be much more to come on that. But it's pretty powerful.
Jason's question, when will we be able to import into Mastercam? No real answer on that. It's not something that's blind to us. I think we want to get where we're more stoked about the product before we start looking at other tools we could work with.
We do have the ability to take a Mastercam tool library and convert it into something that Toolpath can ingest. So if that's something that might be holding you back from trying Toolpath, of course you don't get the cam automation, but you get everything up until that orange button. So Jason, let me know if that's something you want to do.
And a big piece of that for me, at least, is that I've almost always been kind of jealous of setup sheets that the machinists get. Why don't I get them as a CAM programmer? Well, Toolpath would give you a setup sheet now as a Mastercam user, as a solid starting point to go and have a tool list and start programming your part in Mastercam or whatever. And we do have customers using it that way.
Harrison, if you're still on the call, I got to show you this. This is what we were talking about. So if you have your work holding and stock and everything, I'm actually going to delete these toolpaths that actually came from Toolpath. Right. So here's my setups. And in the background, what I've done is I've sent this to Toolpath. It's right here. I'm going to click copy the part key. And by clicking import to current document, it's going to auto-populate those setups and everything inside of that existing document. So it's taking into account the work holding. It's trying to stay away, collision avoidance, all that stuff. So that's our current workflow, and it will be very similar. I have to expect, I suspect, for 3+2 machining. Hopefully that answers that question. Yeah. Okay, cool. Do we have any more questions coming in? Like we said, we'll stay on as long as you guys are here for. So
I'll stay on for another 12 minutes before
Just to say, wasn't there? Didn't I just see a 2D contour chamfer cut around the outside of that part just then?
that was a different tool library. Yes, you did.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So there's some investigation that needs to happen why I didn't get a chamfer on the other one.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, like I get I have chamfer mills in my toolkit config, and I get chamfers very often. Not very often, like when I expect them. Good eye, Scott, from Jason.
Cheers, Jace.
All right, I think everybody's dropping. So I appreciate everybody's time. These are fun for me. Thanks for inviting me to this. Look forward to the next one.
Cool.
See you
Thanks.
later.
We'll see
Good
you.
day. Bye.